Welcome to Listen Nordic Culture Point's very first Residency B28 Artist Talk, both live here at our library in Kaisaniemi, as well as to those who are following us online via the stream. My name is Martta Partio, and I'm a cultural producer here at the Nordic Culture Point. And today I'm discussing with our very first artist in residence, Camilla Stage, a choreographer and a dancer from Denmark. Welcome.
Thank you.
Camilla, you arrived in Finland it's your third day today.
Yes.
What are your first impressions of Helsinki and the Residency B28 on the Suomenlinna Island?
It's very, I was very impressed about the weather because I was a little bit worried that it would be gray and black. And the sun was just shining, and because we are so close to the water in Helsinki, everything reflected very colorful. And I was excited to come to Sveaborg. Are you saying this, or are you saying Suomenlinna?
Sveaborg or Suomenlinna, whichever.
Yes. Anki was kind of my host, and she have introduced me to everything, and I felt very welcome and very excited also to be in Sveaborg and B28 because it's my first impression is that it's a very calm place, and this is what I'm looking for also in my research and in my deepen into my artistic practice.
And that is exactly the topic of the discussion today, is your artistic praxis. As said, you're a dancer and a choreographer, and during your residency you intend to explore topics such as bodily autonomy, bodily integrity, freedom of choice, and the visible expressions in the aging body. So these themes are both like deeply personal, but at the same time both socially and politically charged. As you engage with these different themes in your artistic practice and your research, what kinds of initial questions or tensions are you bringing with you in the studio?
Yeah, you can also say I'm questioning the studio because because it is political, and I see more and more of the body is political, like we see also, especially in the feminist movement, what we say our choice, our body is our choice, and you could also say the dancing body is my choice or our choice, the moving body. So by the age where I see that I'm challenged, and this is both from the society and the culture society, but also inside myself, of course, because you have certain ideas and have built a kind of artistic identity as a dancer, as a way to look in using the body as an art expression. So what I'm trying now to see that all this question raise in me is also to see, is there other way to express and to dive into research, and there I have integrated more also just with reflection, meditation, writing, kind of video documentation, and also just this to say I need to be in a residence to allow myself to give this kind of space. And also not only a physical resident like here that I'm very pleased to be in, but also a kind of life residence in where I am in life now, because I see since my 50 that a lot of question comes in that both come from inside but also from outside. How can I be with my art, with who am I today?
Mm-hmm. So as your practice changed from more pure dance and choreography practice towards more interdisciplinary means over time?
Yeah, you can say so, or at least allow not to be in in seeing things as productive. So it's also like what you can say, stopping up. In one way, you cannot stop the body. You know, we are moving the whole time in the body, and so you cannot stop up. But in another way, I can see that I can think, I can try to go in where I'm not thinking about productive. And also another word also came into me, it's a lot desire. And if you make a jump into what I see after my menopause, it's the female thing that also made a big bang into my idea about my body and also other bodies. Some of the things I can see that I have left a period of desire somehow, and this have been really, I saw, have been my what drove me into produce and to make art, that have been fantastic, and in many years also really the desire of doing and of moving and all this, and in somehow this close a little bit. It's a kind of energy that is not so pulling me towards something. So this is also how to be a body and be a mover who don't have the energy of desire. Where does, when creativity, where do inspiration, where do the daily practice come from? If it's get less driven by that, I don't know about it makes sense, but it's some of those questions I'm putting in. What is making?
You've yourself used also the term of body idealism, and if I interpret it correctly, it's about the conventional ideals of somebody's body and what the body can do. And this, in your work, there's quite a strong emphasis now of like sort of breaking away from the body idealism. Is this something that, can you talk us about how you challenge these expectations through the choreography and movement? You just mentioned that the form of desire has changed in your work. So does that affect the outcomes as well, or how do you work through these changing focus points?
Yeah. And this is the question that I'm sort of into, that also make me more and more towards a kind of, can you say, meditation practice, where it's more about trying to be with things and to listen, have the patience to, because also I'm fighting myself of my own idealism, how I think I should look myself, or how I think dance should look. So this has been a long travel, a lot of years, where also just to realize that I have also to somehow change my idea of example, what does it say to train, because I could see my physical practice of making training was towards to be fit. So example also, but what does it mean to be fit where I am now? What does it mean to be ready for what? So it's really, I break things. It's all kind of things. I'm in period where I break things down, and where I can see I come to also a kind of an ecological body, where I have to understand that I'm a part. It's not only me, but it's us, and us also together with the earth. And I think it's where I somehow get some support in listening, in meeting, in stillness also. Stillness is not only about you're not allowed to say anything, but like yesterday I went out to some of the stones, the big stones behind B28, and just this to lay on a stone kind of support me in helping me to feel where I am and to connect. And from there on, I can go also into more intellectual ways, like you're asking me on, but it's also a kind of grounding in where I am, and then asking me some of these questions in the studio. But I really see that not to get too conceptual. The whole time I have to hold back from this idea of moving on and producing, and it comes so easily to us.
So you are challenging not only the notions of the body idealism, but also what is a dance and choreography practice, as well as where is your working space. So you're taking your practice also outside of the studio, is that correct?
Yeah, and there you can come back to very simple thing like Laban, who say the body in space, or the space in the body. So there, of course, you take what you have known as a dancer, how you work, but take it into new places to question yourself. And of course, in the political way you ask, I think it's for all people who get older that we ask, what is it to be a man? What is it to be a woman? And how are we? I think in the Western world, it's very much we have this. We look at the body, and you are the body that you present, but not so much what are we. So my interest is not either so much to tell about, example, old people. I want to make a dance where I'm telling about being an old. It's much more about where am I now, and have where I also think actually we should, in society, if it was ideal, we could have a kind of a new praxis or education in how is it to move into this stadium of life that is a kind of, what can you say, decomposing. If you talk in an ecological way of the body, how is it that you get slower or you are slowly decomposed? We know that the skin, like you see in the autumn in the nature, the leaves are not green anymore, they get more dry and all this, and in this way it's much more exciting to listen and to share, but not so much the cliché of being old. And of course, if we go into the cliché of being old, you're also afraid to dive into it also as an artist.
It's very interesting also this term of decomposing as a sort of a gradual process. How do you see it then as a dancer and choreographer? Is there any point in time that one can retire from being a dancer? You talked earlier about the desire and the pull. So do you think that the desire and pull will just draw you in until the very end in your artistic career? Or have you ever entertained the idea that maybe one day you will actually retire from being a dancer?
Yeah, already for 10 years I have fought to retire, and I see it in a lot of my colleagues. And even it's only because I'm working in the contemporary dance, because everyone who works with art knows that a ballet dancer, they retire when they are 40. But I think also when we work more on the contemporary field, we are taking, and also today we are more interdisciplinary in our kind of work, where we challenge ourselves and of course also challenge the different art methods. And I also talk with you about. I see in a lot of colleagues, I can see artistic colleagues in the moment they don't have work, artistic work. They are not employed or they don't get work. They stop calling themselves an artist, and this I have thought about. Why should every time I'm not in work, as an artist. Every time I don't produce an artwork, should I then also stop calling myself an artist? So of course a lot of question comes in there. But I think what I can see is I have maybe to ask myself more, what is dance for me, and what have it been? And if I leave some of the identity of what example was created in kind of desire, bodily desire, intellectual desire, mystical desire, whatever you go in to create your work as a dance artist, what is then left? And I think movement is still left. It's probably first when you die, at least the body will still move, because like we talked about before, it will compose, and what will happen, where we can say, maybe to be big in our words, it will be a cosmic body. And this, I think, if also the question of how we go in the world, how we look at the earth also. We don't just look at the earth as a picture where we put ourselves in, but it's a part of us. Then there's a lot of more question that comes in, and comes into a kind of, what can you say, a moving poesy. Poesy and might can be a kind of dance. So I think this is the thing of maybe stopping up, that in one way my body don't want to move. I can see I also try to stop teaching and all this in the evening, because it's like having a hangover 3 days after, when I move so much. When I was younger, it was not a problem, and I can see to be in also with colleague or in a production, if I push too much, if I get too pushed, it doesn't feel, when the feeling come up like I want to retire, but this is more maybe the circumstances to try to be something that I'm not.
You have a very poetic way of describing both your work and your processes, and you also mentioned yourself terms as talking about the body's movement and transformation, all in different fields, physically, energetically, spiritually, and psychologically. And I think this is very descriptive. And also, you said that you have started to work with text form alongside of your choreography and dancing. And I'm not surprised, since your way is already very poetic in itself. But could you open up a little bit more? How do you incorporate your text work into this process of research and dancing?
Yeah, it probably comes also just to make an application to ask for coming to be 28, and an application to maybe try to get production money. So I see suddenly it gets kind of also a text through that is taking both from what I'm. So it's kind of like a process, and because I work with kinesthetic, with movement and with skin and what's going on inside, I think it comes from that. And of course also try to see what is about it, that you can see in if you go in and read about the political body, you see all this question coming also up. Is it my choice to be who I am? What do I get forced in, or what do I expect myself also that others should express? Both, of course, wordly and physical. But I think maybe it's why I also take the text in, is also to step a little bit back, not to get seduced about with my own body, and try to express some of this thing that I cannot express so much more with my body in this way, because also I get taken into certain ideas that I produce myself, but also there's a reason to why I do it, because for so many years, still dance have something to do with being young. Even though we are much more open for the body in many age now in the art world. And also I have my choreographic, of course, I would say I'm mostly choreographic through my career, and so I think it's more a reflection. I use the text to, and also make myself understand by other people.
It's interesting. You said also earlier that this is the first time that you actually have applied for a residency via an open call. And you mentioned that one of the reasons were also that you had different duties when you were younger, and at the same time it was a little bit nerve-wracking because you were exactly wondering how will it go now as an older artist and choreographer. Would you like to share anything about the application process, or how did it then feel to be chosen to come to B28?
Yeah, it's not the first time, but it's like I see that that is first now I really have time, and I also prioritize it because it's big questions I put up in my praxis with about the aging body, that I both feel forced into, but I also want to do. I want to dive into because I see that there's big changing going on in my body, and so this is not something I just can come to intellectual. It is a practice I need to go in, and also accepting that this I need time. I cannot just find the answer like this because it's such a big difference. So I have been in some other residence, but it's now where I don't have small kids. I'm not very attractive in the market of getting production money, because always it's very much on new talents or young talents. And then I got 2 residents in this spring, and I'm a little bit surprised because I have been very honest in the way I ask for that. It is about age, and it's about diving into this as reflect over or the question, or I also put. And of course, when I heard how many people who have asked for residence here, and I got it, I was very, I got very glad that it's possible to do it, and also that that it is a possibility also to come in and actually research some of those items that we have talked about.
Yeah, I can maybe tell to the audience both here and online that we had around 350 applications for the residency, and it was for 6 different residency periods over 1.5 years, and then the artist chosen represented about 2% of the applicants, so it was a very tight and tough competition. We're very glad that you are here now.
And I'm also very happy that, and I think maybe also my application is it's because I worked on it more or less several years, not on this one, but around the thing. And of course also I'm very happy that it's something who resonates in people, that they can see that it's an important theme to investigate in. So of course this make a kind of resonance that when they can see what I'm looking for, it's also nice to come.
Yeah, indeed. You have also a very interesting background in terms of your studies in dance and choreography. So if we go a little bit further back, you studied at the turn of 80s and 90s under Bina Bausch, a German dancer and choreographer who was very influential figure in the field, and who has a very strong legacy, especially in something called dance theater. Has her influence somehow lived on in your work, or is it something you have altogether left behind from those years that you were studying?
I think I have not left anything in this. It's kind of it's experience is in you, and of course in the 80s, even though Pina Bausch was a very what can you say, a person who really made a new kind of work in dance theater. It was still a very hierarchic way. Of example, in the school of train, I'm trained with point shoes and white socks, and yeah. So in one way, I come from the old school to coming into also more through all my years. I think since I'm also still in the dance, was that the somatic body came much more in, that we start to work with Alexandra and Feldenkrais, physical, listen to bodies, also different bodies, and also improvisation. And this is something came along, that I came with my history and my education, that was more, at this time was more, we will say today it was an old-fashioned way of education. But of course, because I came in, I went also to Germany because I saw some of Pina's work where she always said that it's the human who interests her more than the technique and the dance. This is not true. You have to be a very good dancer and technical dancer to join her company. But I think this is something I always take with me, that I make kind of, I'm interested in the humans in my work. But I think that it come more to listen to the body, that people are working much more in education today, and as dancers today, have been that I also listen to where I am, and I also have this idea that I don't have to stop to retire as an artist, but more like how do you go in and can still be an artist today also.
Yeah. Is there any questions from the audience today? Just more listening, it seems. Well, you have also...
Silence is good.
Yeah.
And also but I was thinking also before I came here, but it's also what sometimes it can also be good to ground together, have a stillness moment together. But now we went into this, so it's also a way of being that we don't have to.
I think there was one question.
I'm very curious about when you've been a professional dancer for some years, for many years, one would say. Do you have any sense of major changes in the environment for professional dancers? Is there any tendencies? Is it easier to be a dancer today than for 10 years ago or 15 years ago, or how do you see the environment or the circumstances for being a professional dancer?
Let me repeat the question for our online audience as well. So the question was that if you see any changes in the tendencies on the field for professional dancers, and if it has changed, was it different 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and so on?
Yeah, like in society also happens in art, of course. It's very mostly, I will also say I have mostly worked as a choreographer. So I have been mostly the one who have staging and work the dancer. I have also danced myself, but not so much as I have choreographed. And actually, it's only in my late years I have been more a performer, and especially in pieces that was about getting old, and was also the reason why I'm also questioning that. But I think in contemporary dance today, people, I think they say much more that they are artists. That means that they are both dancers but also choreography. So they, in one way, think more what I see in the contemporary world, that they don't split so much up, like here's the choreographer, here's the dancer, here's the performer, maybe also here's the one who writes about dance. That they take it more into the practice, and young artists, I think, also define more themselves with what is their praxis and not only what do they produce, example. So this is clearly a thing where just 20 years ago it was much more that a dancer say, here I am, do with me what you want. Or that the choreographer expected that you can do this. Plus also in the contemporary work in art, the performance have been much more coming up here the last 20 years with Marina Abramovic and all kind of thing where you use the body in art and in museum. So also the dance becomes more like, what can you say? A dance becomes also like a spectacular body in many things. I also talked with Anki about choreographer is also using non-dancers, like normally people, or people without a dance background. So in this way, a lot of things have happened into this. Did it answer a little bit your question? Yeah.
Any further questions? Yes, please. Let me repeat again for the audience online. So the question was along the lines that how do you see the difference between commercial and artistic dance practice, for example, music videos or bigger artistic performances that are set up maybe on a stage?
And do you mean related to the aging body or just to the body or to dance? It's more to maybe narrow the question a little bit. Yeah, yesterday actually I looked at some kind of fashion show where there was a lot of older women, and I've seen it more. I saw some magazine last week in my home where there was an older model, and of course it's a little bit complex because I'm welcoming to see example of women with white hair and wrinkles, and but of course you always question a little bit. Is it because it's a kind of way to find money? So it's a big political discussion, I think, because I don't see. For me, I would just like to see the human, both commercial and in artistic ways. So we get much more use that that we are existing as a human being. And of course, this will involve also the more commercial. But as it is now, I think, of course, the weight is, you see about the watch or the money, and when you see a young breaker, or skater or something like this, but actually it's like it's for money for a guy on 50 years. So sometimes this is a little bit, yeah. I don't know really, because it for me it comes into a quite political thing. But I welcome more that we see all kind of ages in also commercial, because of course the more the commercial also embrace this, the more we get used to it, and when we are not so surprised taken when we see young people in this environment or older people in this environment. Yeah, did it a little bit.
Any more questions today? Wait on a bit. Let me circle back a little bit to the beginning, and I mentioned that your sort of themes and terms you use in your work is bodily autonomy, integrity, freedom of choice. How would you define this on the field of dance and choreography? What do you mean by bodily autonomy, for example?
Yeah, but it is this, that you can be the body you are. And of course also dance have developed into that we don't only see very skinny person. It's a little bit like the same in the fashion world, that there was a very stereotype of how you have to be young and you have to be thin. And of course, especially in contemporary dance, of course, we have tried to embrace much more different kind of bodies, and also colors and ages. So I think those questions or those terms you're repeating is both way for me. So every time I see that this is kind of a wall to society, it also actually is a wall for myself. So I have to go in and say, why do I question my artistic practice? Why do I question my identity as a dancer now when I'm 62? And so it's kind of both reflection, and of course it's because I'm a part of my culture. So there I also see, yeah, but I have some choice. I have some choice to, if I find out how this works for me, I have a choice to say, example, we know his terms that as older you get invisible and also you make yourself invisible, because who wants to go out and shine their wrinkles? Who wants to go out and see that your body is not so fit? So in one way, as humans, we withdraw. But it's a both side also where we get withdrawn, because so much is on our looks. You look old. I look old. That's why I have to be invisible. And of course, this is the thing of that my question is not to get invisible. It's not either that I want to be out there, like look at me, look at me, but I want to question the whole time that I don't have to withdraw because of shame, more or less. And asking this thing, and how can I be there without covering, try to pretend that I'm something that I'm not, and also that I don't have to say now I only do older things because I'm in this age. So I think it's those questions that I say, and this is a kind of also to embrace your autonomy as, for my case, as a woman and as a body that is 62, and there, like I said in the beginning, suddenly it comes a lot of questions about where do I belong, and there I see you come also when you also come into a kind of ecological body. So in one way things go much together, and there I can see where I find it's that I belong in the earth. I belong to the earth. I'm not just a picture in a picture, a body picture in a picture of the world, but I'm connected with the world. So in this way also it's get very exciting, because it gets much more holistic in the way of thinking about age, of being age, and of course also about connecting together, connecting to the earth, connecting to art, and connecting to different kind of ages. So yeah.
And it also answers inadvertently to this question of freedom of choice.
Yes.
So it is your willingness of being able to choose how do you yourself interpret.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
mm,
Yeah. So really also it is to dive as a, of course you know that you are a part of the culture, but of course you're also a part of changing the culture, and especially that's why we're also trying in art to open up, to find new perspective. And of course it's different for all of us how we go in, and so as an artist I can see that there are common questions, but of course also there's also a very personal way to do it, and a personal way to express that in art. Yeah. And because it's not, what can you say, it's not so common, because older people withdraw. So of course also it's kind of a, I will not say pioneer work, but you have to go a little bit a pioneer way also to dive into some of this question that is difficult.
and maybe hasn't been asked before in the dance and choreography to this depth.
Yeah, yeah, and yourself also see it's worth it. It's, you don't have to, withdraw. You don't have to say no, it's over and now it's time to retire. Yeah.
Well, maybe I can bring the conversation back to the residence B28, and it is interesting contrast in a way that you are doing this research on the aging body and choreography, dance, and we've been talking about retirement and being part of the world, and then and in some ways the sort of reclusion that is expected from older people. And it is almost a little bit paradoxical that residences in some ways work as retreats where you do withdraw from the world. Do you think it's necessary to be able to then process a bigger topics about inclusion and being part of something, to then at the same time having this time for yourself by yourself?
Yeah, and I think when the most of us, when we make new questions to ourselves, or we get challenged in where we are in life, with our work or our identity, we need a kind of time for reflection, and it can be together with other who are in the same maybe situation. But now, I mean, I don't totally withdraw, because I get some feedback from you, and now we sit here where I also have in one way to share my thoughts and my place in life. And there will also be a showing, kind of sharing of work. So even this withdrawing, and also it's not a withdrawing, because just the 2 days I have been here, I have been around in the surroundings around B28, and for me this is very lively to meet, example, Finnish stones, because they are just there. And I also say to Anki, where last year I was also in a resident in Bornholm, that is, for Danish standard, is a very rocky island. As you know, probably most of Denmark is quite flat, and the stone is quite hidden in the ground. So if we go back to the ecological body, it's suddenly you're very near. near elements. You're very near to just go 10 meters and you can lay on a stone, and a lot of things happen. So you withdraw for something. I think I withdraw from, in my situation, the art world in Copenhagen, the community of staging and all this, but I also open up to, when I withdraw, I have space to open up to other elements and energies that can support some of the thing. And this I also want to say, if you stay, I think when I was younger, and if we come back to also the desire, you just want it all before you die, or something very dramatical. And suddenly, when I'm here in this age, I see also, okay, I have to close some doors. How to close some doors, and I didn't want to slam them. This I always knew, not to just stop from one day, because it have been so big part of my life to be in dancer and work with this. I have worked very hard on it. Nearly been married with it, so I have got a lot of things, but I also have really paid big prices for it. So I didn't just want to walk away from it. But maybe this is also a little bit cliche, but actually I see that the more I manage to close some doors, actually in this place I am in life, there is the possibility to open up to something that in one way is more metaphysical. And of course in one way, because I come closer to death and I get more aware about my decomposing body or my connection to nature in this way. And this is very exciting, because some other levels of being in life open up. And that's why also it's such a pity if you avoid the age. Because when this knowledge, and maybe also this poetic knowledge, you cannot share with people. If we go on this train of being productive the whole time, wanting to be young and fit, that is very much in the commercial, of course, in our culture, but also in our art. That the most of you know it's hard to be an artist to survive. I mean, so of course also you have in one way to produce to get your rent. So of course you get also very challenged with this in your when you get older. Did you succeed enough to have money enough? How do I get work? Because most of us are freelancers, so there's a lot of things also challenge you with this. And as I see it, if we get so afraid that we close and we don't want to be there, it's also a lot of knowledge that we will not be able to share and will not be able to discover. That for me is about moving in life in one way. Yeah.
It was again very poetic description, and it's in the recent years, if aging or elderly have been in the media, there's been different concepts. For example, there was a woman in Sweden, I believe, who wrote a book about the death cleansing, so the physical cleansing of their house as they are aging. But how you speaking, it sounds more of the spiritual cleansing and the metaphysical cleansing, and suddenly in our society where we maybe are avoiding talking about death or avoiding the concept of age, it's a very gentle and beautiful approach to both oneself and our approach as a society to the aging, as a sort of.
And this is by learning also in these years I have worked about this to see that it can be that it's a spiritual way, but it's also, I think, the whole discussion about what is to be human and what is it to be gender or not, and what is it to connect to nature. That is a big thing that a lot of us are questioning in those years. how to connect to the earth, to respect the earth, to respect ourselves in this, and how the whole time not ending in cliches about how is it to be young, how is it to be old, how is it to be alive in this wave, and maybe there's, yeah.
Well, I believe we are nearing the end of our discussion, but hopefully not nearing the end otherwise, not just yet. But I would like to tell to our audience, both here and online, that there is a chance to meet you in person in 2 weeks' time again at the Residency B28, as you are having an open stage session there at the Residency. And you mentioned a little bit earlier on already that part of your practice is also meditative, and part of your practice is text. And I believe that the people who are wanting to join in the open stage, they can come and observe that, but there is also a chance to be part of this practice that you have going on. Is that correct?
Yeah, I also talked to Anki about this because everyone have been so helpful at the residence. Do you want a dance floor? Do you want a studio? Do you want and all this? And what I'm trying the whole time also is to not a big challenge for me is not to already know what I want. And I have to also myself, because what is very wonderful for everyone in residencies is that it's a very good place to, example, make a solo or do it because you have this kind of concentration. And I see the whole time in where I am now, I also have to withdraw a little bit to have too many ideas to be open for it. But all in all, it is to invite into a kind of sharing where I try to open up, and it's what people want to like. Also, if you want to be silenced, it's beautiful. If you don't want to be silenced, also like having an open field with that. So I will see what it will be, but definitely I want to share something, and people are very welcome to be a part of it, or just to look at it, or however they are.
Well, nevertheless, everyone is welcome to join then. That is only physically, so no streaming possibilities. So you're welcome to travel out to B28, and all the information about the event times and public transport you can find from our website, nkk.org. And you have also mentioned a couple of times during the interview my colleague Anki Helperi-Sogfors. So if anybody has further questions to Anki, who is developing the space out in Suomenlinna where we have the residency and other spaces, and also running the residency. So Anki's contact details are also available online. And I think that we are good for today in that case. It is so lovely to have you here, Camilla, and thank you for this discussion. It was very poetic to listen to you, and I look forward to the open stage on 2 weeks' time.
If you manage.
Yeah.
You too.
Different bodily challenges.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm.